The courtroom smelled of polished wood and stale coffee. But all I could feel was the weight of betrayal crushing my chest. My parents sat across from me, their faces carved from stone, while my sister, Emily, clutched the deed to her new $285,000 house like it was her birthright. I glanced at the cheap plastic watch on my wrist, $5. Maybe less, and the golden retriever beside me whimpered. Sensing my rage, I'd always been the dutiful daughter. At 30, I'd spent my life bending over backward to please mom and dad, working 2 jobs to pay for college while Emily partied her way through her teens. They called me reliable, the one who'd always be fine. But when Dad handed me that watch at the family dinner, saying, "Take care of Rusty, Claire. The house is for Emily, she needs it more," something inside me snapped. A $5 watch for a lifetime of loyalty, while Emily, the golden child, got a house. I wasn't fine. Not anymore. Growing up, our family was a fragile balance of love and resentment. Mom and Dad adored Emily's charm, her effortless way of lighting up a room. I was the shadow, the one who cleaned up her messes literally and figuratively. When she crashed Dad's car at 16, I took the blame. When she flunked out of college, I tutored her to pass her GED. But the house, that was a line I couldn't cross. It wasn't just the money. It was the message. I was worth less than a trinket, while Emily was handed a future. The dinner where it all unraveled was 2 months ago. Mom had cooked her famous lasagna, and the air was thick with the usual tension. Emily, 25 and radiant, was bragging about her new job as a social media influencer, hardly a career, in my opinion. But Mom and Dad beamed like she'd cured cancer. I sat quietly, petting Rusty, the family's golden retriever, who'd been my companion since I was a kid. Then Dad cleared his throat and dropped the bomb. "Emily's been struggling," he said, as if her life of late rent and maxed-out credit cards was a tragedy. "We've decided to give her the house we bought as an investment. It's a fresh start." I waited, expecting my name to come next. Instead, Dad slid a small box toward me. Inside was the watch, its tacky plastic face glinting under the dining room light. "You're good with Rusty," he added. "You'll take care of him." I stared at the watch, my hands trembling. "This is it?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Mom avoided my eyes. Emily smirked, her manicured nails tapping the table. "Claire, you're so independent," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. "You don't need a house." I wanted to scream, to throw the watch across the room. But Rusty nudged my leg, grounding me. I wasn't going to let this go. The next day, I called a lawyer. I'd never been litigious. But this wasn't about money, it was about fairness. My parents had always played favorites. But this was a slap in the face. The house was bought with family money, including my contributions from years of helping with their business. I'd spent summers balancing their books, foregoing my own dreams to keep their hardware store afloat. If anyone deserved a share, it was me. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Rachel, listened to my story with a raised eyebrow. "It's not about the watch," I told her, my voice cracking. "It's about them telling me I'm nothing." Rachel nodded, her pen flying across her notepad. "We can argue unjust enrichment," she said. "Your contributions to the family's wealth give you a claim. But Claire, this will get ugly. Are you ready?" I looked at Rusty, who'd followed me to her office, his loyal eyes meeting mine. "I'm ready," I said. The lawsuit was filed a week later. I didn't want the house, just my fair share of its value. But the news spread like wildfire through our small town. Neighbors whispered, friends took sides, and my parents' fury was palpable. They called me ungrateful, said I was tearing the family apart. Emily posted cryptic Instagram stories about toxic people, her followers eating it up. I didn't care. For once, I was fighting for myself. The first court date was a gut punch. Seeing Mom and Dad in the defendant's seats, their faces a mix of anger and shame, made my stomach churn. Emily sat beside them, her designer purse a stark contrast to my thrift store blazer. Rusty wasn't allowed in, so I'd left him with a friend, but I felt his absence like a missing limb. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, listened as Rachel laid out my case: years of unpaid labor, emotional neglect, and a clear pattern of favoritism. My parents' lawyer argued that the house was a gift, that I had no legal claim. But Rachel was relentless, presenting bank statements showing my contributions to the family's accounts. As the gavel fell, adjourning the session, I caught Mom's eye. For a split second, I saw something regret. Maybe. But she looked away. Emily, though, glared at me with pure venom. I knew this was just the beginning. The fight was on, and I wasn't backing down. The weeks leading to the next hearing were a blur of sleepless nights and tense phone calls. I'd moved out of my parents' house years ago, but the lawsuit made our rift official. Mom left voicemails begging me to drop the case, her voice trembling with a mix of guilt and manipulation. "Claire, you're breaking our hearts," she'd say. I deleted them without replying. Dad, on the other hand, sent a single text: "You're no daughter of mine." It stung, but I'd heard worse from him growing up. Rusty became my anchor. Every morning, I'd take him for long walks through the park, his wagging tail a reminder that at least someone was on my side. I'd talk to him about the case, about how I wasn't just fighting for money, but for respect. He'd tilt his head, his brown eyes soft and understanding. And for a moment, I'd feel less alone. But the loneliness crept in at night, when I'd lie awake wondering if I was the villain Emily painted me to be. Emily's social media campaign was relentless. She posted photos of the house, a charming two-story with a wraparound porch caption with hashtags like blessed and family love. Her followers didn't know the truth, that I'd helped pay for that house with years of unpaid work. She even started a GoFundMe, claiming she needed legal fees to defend her home. The audacity made my blood boil. But Rachel advised me to stay quiet. Let her dig her own grave, she said. The truth will come out in court. I spent hours digging through old records, finding proof of my contributions. There were receipts from when I'd covered the store's utility bills, emails where I'd negotiated with suppliers, even a handwritten note from Dad thanking me for saving the business during a rough year. Each piece was a brick in the wall I was building, but it also reopened old wounds. I remembered the pride I'd felt helping my family, how I'd thought it meant we were a team. Now, I saw it for what it was: exploitation. The second hearing was brutal. Rachel called witnesses former employees who confirmed I'd worked unpaid hours. A family friend who'd seen Mom and Dad dismiss my efforts while praising Emily. My parents' lawyer tried to paint me as greedy, a jealous sister who couldn't handle Emily's success. But Rachel was a master at turning their narrative against them. She presented a timeline of my contributions, showing how the family's wealth grew because of my sacrifices. Then it was my turn to testify. Standing in the witness box, I felt exposed, like my heart was on display. I told the judge about the watch, about Rusty, about the years I'd given up to keep the family afloat. My voice cracked when I described the dinner, how Emily's smirk had cut deeper than Dad's words. I just wanted to be seen, I said, tears spilling over. I wanted them to value me. The courtroom was silent, but I could feel Emily's glare burning into me. Mom took the stand next. She cried, saying they'd given Emily the house because she was lost and needed stability. Claire's always been strong, she said, as if that justified everything. I wanted to scream that strength isn't a reward for being ignored. Dad was worse. Claimed I'd never asked for help, that I'd chosen to work for free. Rachel pounced, presenting the documents I'd found, proving I'd been essential to their success. The judge's expression was unreadable, but I saw doubt flicker in Dad's eyes. After the hearing, I went home and collapsed on the couch, Rusty curling up beside me. The fight was far from over, but I felt a spark of hope. I wasn't just Claire, the reliable daughter, anymore. I was Claire, The woman who fought back. And I was just getting started. The town was buzzing with gossip by the third hearing. People I'd known my whole life, neighbors. Old teachers stopped me at the grocery store. Some offering support. Others judging me silently. How could you sue your own family? One woman asked, her voice dripping with disapproval. I didn't answer. Explaining myself to strangers felt pointless when my own parents couldn't see my worth. At home, Rusty was my refuge. I'd sit on the floor, scratching his ears, telling him things I couldn't say to anyone else. They think I'm the bad guy. Rusty, I'd whisper. He'd nudge my hand, his warmth a reminder that I wasn't alone. But the weight of the lawsuit was heavy. Friends I'd thought were loyal stopped calling, swayed by Emily's online sob stories. She'd painted herself as the victim, the poor girl just trying to keep her dream house. Rachel kept me focused. She'd uncovered more evidence, a bank account in Mom and Dad's name that I'd helped fund, which they'd used to buy the house. This strengthens your case, she said, her eyes gleaming. It's not just emotional, it's financial. I nodded, but the victory felt hollow. I didn't want to destroy my parents. I just wanted them to see me. The third hearing was a turning point. Rachel called an accountant who testified that my contributions to the family business were worth at least $100,000 over the years. The courtroom gasped when she presented the numbers. Even Emily looked shaken, her usual smirk replaced by a tight-lipped frown. My parents' lawyer tried to argue that my work was voluntary, but the judge wasn't buying it. She leaned forward, her eyes sharp, and asked Dad point-blank, did Claire ever receive compensation for her contributions? Dad fumbled, muttering about family loyalty. I wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. Loyalty. I'd given them everything, and they'd given me a $5 watch. The judge's expression hardened, and I felt a surge of vindication. For the first time, someone was listening. But the real shock came after the hearing. As we left the courtroom, Mom approached me, her face pale. Claire, can we talk? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I wanted to say no, to walk away, but something in her eyes stopped me. We sat in a quiet corner of the courthouse, Rusty at my feet. She apologized, tears streaming down her face, saying she'd never meant to hurt me. We thought you were okay, she said. You always seemed so strong. Being strong doesn't mean I don't need love, I replied, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. She nodded, but I could see the gap between us was too wide to bridge in one conversation. I walked away, Rusty trotting beside me, feeling both lighter and heavier. Mom's apology was a start, but it wasn't enough. That night, I found an old photo album in my apartment. Pictures of me and Emily as kids, laughing in the backyard, Rusty a puppy between us. I traced my finger over Emily's face, wondering where we'd gone wrong. I didn't hate her, not really. I hated the system that made her the favorite, that taught her she deserved everything while I got scraps. The lawsuit wasn't just about money. It was about rewriting that story. The fourth hearing loomed like a storm cloud. I'd started to dread the courtroom, the way it stripped our family bare for strangers to judge. But Rachel was relentless, digging up more evidence, emails where I'd begged Dad for a raise, only to be told family doesn't need payment. Each document was a knife, cutting through the lies I'd told myself about our family's love. Emily upped her game, too. Her latest Instagram post showed her crying in the house's kitchen, captioned, "Fighting for what's mine." Her followers flooded the comments with support, calling me a monster. I wanted to scream at them, to show them the bank statements, the years of my life I'd poured into our family. But I stayed silent, letting Rachel do the talking in court. The hearing focused on the house's ownership. Rachel argued that it was bought with family assets, not just Mom and Dad's money. She presented a paper trail showing how my contributions had bolstered their finances, making the purchase possible. The judge listened intently, her pen scratching notes. My parents' lawyer tried to shift the blame, claiming I'd chosen to help without expecting reward. But Rachel was ready, producing a contract I'd signed as a teenager, promising me a share of the business. They broke their own agreement, she said, her voice ringing with conviction. Dad's face crumpled when the contract was shown. I'd forgotten about Ida's naive promise I'd believed at 18. Seeing it now, I felt a mix of vindication and sadness. He'd known I deserved more, but he'd chosen Emily anyway. The judge adjourned the session, saying she'd review the evidence. As we left, Emily grabbed my arm. "You're ruining everything," she hissed. I pulled away, my heart pounding. "No, Emily, you did." That night, I took Rusty to the lake, watching him chase sticks in the water. His joy was a balm, a reminder that life wasn't all pain. I thought about Mom's apology, Dad's silence, Emily's anger. The lawsuit was tearing us apart, but it was also forcing the truth into the open. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was fighting, and people were seeing Miralai seeing me for the first time. Rachel called the next day with news. The judge wanted mediation. It was a chance to settle out of court, to avoid a final ruling that could destroy what was left of our family. I was torn. Part of me wanted to keep fighting, to make them pay for every slight. But another part, the part that still loved them, wanted peace. I agreed to the mediation, but I made one thing clear. I wasn't backing down without a fair deal. The mediation was set for the following week. I spent the days preparing, gathering every scrap of evidence, every memory of sacrifice. Rusty stayed by my side, his presence a quiet strength. I didn't know what would happen, but I knew one thing. I was done being the forgotten daughter. Whatever came next, I'd face it head on. Mediation was a battlefield of emotions. We sat in a sterile conference room, me and Rachel on one side, Mom, Dad, Emily, and their lawyer on the other. Rusty wasn't allowed, but I'd brought his collar, tucked in my pocket like a talisman. The mediator, a calm man in his 60s, explained the rules: no interruptions, no accusations. I wanted to laugh. Our family had never followed rules like that. Rachel started, laying out my case with surgical precision. She listed my contributions, the broken promises, the $5 watch. The mediator nodded, his face neutral, but I saw Mom flinch when Rachel mentioned the watch. Dad stared at the table, his hands clenched. Emily, though, was defiant, insisting the house was her fresh start. "Claire's just jealous," she said, her voice sharp. I bit my tongue, letting Rachel counter with facts. Then it was my turn to speak. I looked at my family, their faces a mix of guilt and defiance, and let the words pour out. "I spent my life trying to earn your love," I said. "I worked for you, sacrificed for you, and you gave me a watch and told me to stay with the dog. I'm not asking for the house. I'm asking for fairness." My voice broke, but I kept going. I deserved to be valued. Mom started crying, and Dad's shoulders slumped. Emily rolled her eyes, but I saw a crack in her armor, a flicker of doubt. The mediator asked my parents to respond. Mom spoke first, her voice shaky. "We didn't know how much it hurt you, Claire. We thought you were okay." Dad added, "We wanted to help Emily. She was struggling." I wanted to scream that I'd struggled, too, but I'd never asked for handouts. The mediator proposed a settlement, sell the house, and split the proceeds, with me getting a fair share based on my contributions. Emily exploded, shouting that it was her house, her future. Dad tried to calm her, but she stormed out, leaving a heavy silence. Mom looked at me, her eyes pleading. "Can we fix this, Claire?" she asked. I didn't answer. I wasn't sure we could. Rachel and I stepped outside to talk. "It's a good offer," she said, "but it's your call." I thought of Rusty, of the years I'd given up, of the watch still ticking on my wrist. "I want more than money," I said. "I want them to admit they were wrong." Rachel nodded. "Then we keep fighting." Back in the room, I laid out my terms, a public apology from my parents, acknowledging my contributions, and a fair share of the house's value. Dad balked, saying it was too much. Mom hesitated, then nodded. Emily, who'd returned, was furious, but the mediator pressed them to consider it. We left without a deal, but I felt stronger than ever. I was done settling for scraps. The days after mediation were a waiting game. Rachel warned me that my parents might dig in, refusing to admit fault. But I wasn't backing down. I'd spent too long being invisible. And now, with the truth laid bare, I felt a fire I hadn't known I had. Rusty sensed it, too, sticking closer than usual, his tail wagging like he was cheering me on. Emily's social media attacks grew vicious. She posted a video, tears streaming down her face, claiming I was destroying our family. Her followers ate it up, flooding my inbox with hate. I blocked her, but the damage was done. Old friends stopped talking to me, and even my boss at the library, where I work part-time, gave me a pitying look. Stay strong, Rachel texted. The truth is on your side. Then came a surprise. Mom showed up at my apartment. She looked older, her eyes red from crying. Rusty greeted her with a wagging tail, but I stayed guarded. I'm sorry, Claire, she said, her voice breaking. We didn't see you. Not the way we should have. She admitted they'd favored Emily, thinking I didn't need them. It was the apology I'd wanted, but it felt bittersweet. What about Dad? I asked. She shook her head. He's stubborn. But I'm here. We talked for hours, peeling back years of hurt. She told me about her own sacrifices, how she'd felt invisible in her marriage. I saw her not just as my mother, but as a woman who'd made mistakes. When she left, I hugged her, something I hadn't done in years. Rusty licked her hand, and she smiled. It wasn't forgiveness not yet, but it was a start. The sixth hearing was explosive. Rachel presented new evidence, a letter from Dad to a business partner, admitting I'd saved the store from bankruptcy. The courtroom buzzed, and Dad's face turned red. Their lawyer tried to downplay it, but the judge wasn't impressed. She warned that if we couldn't settle, she'd rule based on the evidence, and it wasn't looking good for my parents. Emily took the stand, her voice dripping with venom. She called me ungrateful, said I'd always been jealous. But Rachel was ready, cross-examining her about her spending habits, her lack of contribution to the family. Emily faltered, her confidence cracking. For the first time, I saw her not as the golden child, but as someone scared of losing her pedestal. The judge gave us one last chance to settle. That night, I sat with Rusty, weighing my options. Mom's apology had softened me, but Dad's silence and Emily's attacks hardened my resolve. I wasn't just fighting for money, I was fighting for my worth. And I wasn't done yet. The final hearing was a reckoning. The courtroom felt smaller, the air thick with anticipation. Rusty was with my neighbor, but I felt his presence in the collar I clutched in my pocket. Rachel had prepared me for every outcome, but nothing could brace me for seeing my family on the other side. Their faces a mix of defiance and defeat. Rachel opened with a powerful summary, weaving together my years of sacrifice, the watch, the house, and the broken promises. She ended with a plea. Claire isn't asking for everything. She's asking for what's fair. The judge nodded, her eyes scanning the room. My parents' lawyer argued that the house was a gift, that I had no legal claim, but his words felt hollow after Rachel's evidence. Then the judge spoke. She acknowledged my contributions, the contract, the letter, everything Rachel had fought for. This isn't just about money, she said. It's about equity. She ruled that the house be sold, with 40% of the proceeds going to me, reflecting my contributions. Emily gasped, and Dad's face went pale. Mom reached for his hand, but he pulled away. Outside the courtroom, Emily stormed off, but Mom approached me. I'm proud of you, she said, her voice soft. It was the first time she'd ever said that. Dad stayed silent, but I saw something shift in his eyes: regret. Maybe. Or shame. I didn't need his words anymore. The ruling was my victory. My proof that I was worth more than a $5 watch. The house sold quickly, and I got my share, enough to start over. To build a life on my terms. I moved to a small apartment by the lake, Rusty at my side, and started a new job teaching at a community college. Mom and I began rebuilding, meeting for coffee, talking about the past. Dad kept his distance, and Emily blocked me on everything. It hurt, but I was free. One evening, as Rusty chased fireflies in the yard, I took off the watch and tossed it into a drawer. It wasn't a symbol of pain, Anna Maria. It was a reminder of what I'd overcome. I'd fought for myself, for my worth, and I'd won. Not just the money, but the truth. I was enough.